awesome.
Oh my goodness, Jason Joyce. Guess
Marnie Glickman for the first time ever coming to us live from Northeast Portland.
Do you see?
Whoa.
That's awesome.
Yeah, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Keri just popped on, so we didn't do the normal pre-interview. So where are you coming? Keri Silvernagel joining us. Keri, where are you joining us?
I live in Northeast Minneapolis.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Northeast Minneapolis.
Super hipster. I'm still working on that part.
Okay, wait. There's way too much to talk about already. I haven't been in Minneapolis since the last reunion. So what is so hip about your neighborhood? And what are those two pretty posters behind you?
I had to remind myself where I was in the house.
Yeah.
First, Northeast Minneapolis is kind of the hipster arts district part of Minneapolis. And I think that's relative. That's happened within maybe the last 10 years, maybe 15. But I would say at one point it was a very working class part of Minneapolis and has really shifted over to super hipster. If you want a brewery, for instance, walking distance, I bet you 10 of them. So I'm a mediocre beer fan, so it's actually kind of funny where you're just like, oh, sure, we can go to breweries.
Yeah.
Super, yeah. That is the deal.
When we were kids, people would call it Nordeast because that was sort of the accent of the dialect at the time, but now it's a little bit more Northeast, right?
I would still call it Nordeast, but I think with the millennials and now the Gen Zers moving in, they're building all sorts of fancy buildings in the neighborhoods. I would say it's going to become Northeast very quickly.
So how long have you lived there, Keri? And are you an OG or did you come in with the wave?
I have been living in Minneapolis most of the time since we graduated. And have lived in Northeast for the last maybe 8 years. So I spent a lot of time over south, a few years in uptown, of course. That's the joy of being in your 20s.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
So,
we've had quite a few people who live in various parts of the city, and I just think now neither Marnie nor I live there. I get back more often than she does, but I love Minneapolis. I just think it's such a great city. What do you love about living there? What do you tell people is like the reason why you still like living there?
I think Minneapolis is just one of the coolest cities. I certainly every year in the winter talk about moving. So I won't pretend that's not a problem. But, we live right by Boom Island. So we have it's a very walkable city. So we're super lucky to have that. Even when you don't live right close to one of the better parks, there's miles and miles of bike paths and walking paths. I would say Minneapolis just has a really rich arts and entertainment, center really, where you can get almost anything you're really looking for. We love live music. We love being out. I love summertime. Last year was kind of a bummer, but looking forward to this year, so that should be fun.
Yeah, it's roaring
all the
back.
lakes. Yeah, I'm not even a boat person, but it's nice to have that much water around.
Yeah.
So
what do you do for work? And tell us about what you briefly summarize the last 30 plus years of your life. Northrop Auditorium in June of 1988 on.
Well, meandered my way through college, finished that up, spent a little time just bumming around. I was fortunate to be able to study abroad for a year, and then went back and got a work permit for a few months of working in a pub. That was a lot of fun in England. Then finally got a day job. That was a hard transition. I had been waiting on tables, and that's a much more fun lifestyle, I'll say. But from there, typical, I had a number of jobs actually. My 20s were kind of a hot mess, but that's the joy of being in your 20s.
Yeah, you got to get it out of the way.
They were fun, but not super focused. Yeah, I've been very lucky. I've been able to travel a lot internationally. I'm still really good friends with Deidre, and we've traveled a lot together. Still good friends with Linda Schneewind. She's sorry she couldn't make it tonight, but it's so yeah, just really now going through all those years. I've had many jobs. I've worked for many companies, and right now I work in the exciting world of health insurance. I've been working at that for a number of years, doing product development and strategy for the individual and family products. So it's oddly enough, who knew I'd like talking about health insurance all day, but I've tried a few other things that were not great.
You say the exciting world of health insurance, but from my personal experience, it's always very dramatic, right? It's your health. It's like, oh my gosh, do you have to deal with emotional topics?
We have to deal with, I would say, sensitive topics, right? So, I spend a lot of time talking about what we cover or don't cover and why, and what we need to cover by the law, and what you may want to cover because it's the right thing. So there's a lot of discussion on coverage. I spend a lot of time talking about that. So it's a really they're really sensitive issues, and they're of course really interesting when you dive into like the good and bad, when you start talking to physicians about some of the different procedures. And other pieces of it are really digging into the claim detail, which is there are days where that can really put you out. A lot of data. We love data,
Yeah, that's what it's all about though, right? I mean, that's how everything gets sort of decided. Where is your place of work, and have you been working from home?
So it's in Minnetonka. I have been working from home for the last little over a year, of course. We actually start going back to work physically in the office next month, the first week of next month. So I'm gonna have to start putting on pants again. I'm gonna have to shower on a regular basis. I've kind of rolled into this lifestyle pretty easily. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hanging out with coworkers and seeing people again. But boy, that first week might be kind of dicey.
Yeah, it's funny because most people that we talk to have been working from home. Some people don't. But now we are just getting to that point of transitioning back. I've been back for 2 weeks. Today, actually, I was home. But it was the first day I've been home for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, it's funny. I hated being home at first. And it's not that I hate going back. It's just that it's a big inconvenience. You got to get up in the morning and get your make coffee and put it in something. Yeah, what?
And shower. Like I said, it's going to be a real rude awakening.
But I think people are emerging at different paces, which is interesting, or different things are harder. Like my teen has been going to in-person school, and that's been great. But when they have to go to the grocery store, like when they see people they don't know, it's hard. So it's just kind of different in different areas of life.
I would agree with that. I think it's actually kind of awkward re-socializing. I don't know. We've spent the last year kind of holed up. Fortunately, I like the people I live with. I think that helps
that is
a lot of. I think this has been a hard year for a lot of relationships, but that makes a big difference. And we've got a larger yard than maybe I really want with a garden in it. That's a lot. So that's been kind of plaguing my mind. Super hot and humid here, so I'm still not doing it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's this last year's been trying, I think, on a lot of people. And that re-socialization, like I still walk in with a mask on. And then when I notice that I really don't have to, I'm like, oh, good. That's right.
Yeah, we're playing around with
Yeah,
that
everyone-
here all the time. Have a mask, put it in your
Mhm.
pocket, and then like get the feet, like maybe stand outside a little bit and go, what's this place? Is hardcore mask, come as you are? What are we doing?
I'm immunocompromised, so I wear my mask a lot with people I don't know.
Yeah.
And then people are like, you don't have to wear a mask. And I'm like, oh, but it's all different for everyone.
And I think that's harder too as people come out of it, because they are like, no mask. And you're like, well, there's a happy medium here.
And
Yeah,
then
we're
you have to
gonna
wear
find it.
lipstick, gloss.
Mhm.
Floss. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
we're
did get used to the mask.
I did too, and
Yeah.
it's funny, the other day I was very upset. I couldn't find my favorite mask. And I was like, what am I gonna do? It's like the perfect, it just like fits in your pocket, it's very easy on. It complements my eyes.
It became really easy to wear, where you're like, I really can let everything go. I'm gonna put a mask on and a hat.
Yeah,
That's where I've
yeah.
gotten. Mhm.
Yeah.
Lots of masks and hats.
Well, I have to say, I have dressed up the most this year for KHOP88. Like a jacket, lip gloss.
It looks good. I mean, that's good. 'Cause-
So we've got some people tuning in. People are saying hello. Troy Finn, of course, is here. Chad Alt is recalling living in Uptown in the late 80s and early 90s. Colfax, DuPont, and Emerson.
Nice.
Doug Robertson has a question for you about Nordeast. He wonders if you can still get good Polish food up there.
You can. Kramarski still exists.
Nice.
Yeah, Nyes is actually still there, just a different version of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's so you certainly can. It's not what it once was, but yeah.
I have to look this place up now because I don't know how far northeast this was. The Gastoff.
Gastoff is still there.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I drive by it on occasion. I can't remember if it's opened yet or not.
Okay.
Okay,
But
you guys,
Mhm.
I'm stuck on a phrase you said, good Polish food. What is good Polish food, Keri?
Well, I would just go straight to a brat,
Okay.
Polish, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably as good as it's going to get, and they
Polish
can
sausage.
be fantastic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other place that I remember from Nordeast we used to go for special occasions was Jack's, Jax, Jack's Cafe. But again,
Jack's Cafe is
much
still there
farther
too.
north. Okay.
Yeah.
And they used to have, I mean, this was like for my grandmother's birthday, we'd go. And two things I remember about Jack's is they would, if they knew it was a special occasion, they would emboss these matchbooks. So you'd get to your seat and it would say, my grandmother's name was Phyllis. It would say, happy birthday, Phyllis, on these embossed matchbooks at everybody's plate. That was cool. And then they
For your
also had
cigarettes? Like, what were people using?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like
For your cigarettes.
right. 11-year-old boy, whatever.
Okay,
Like firecrackers. And then they had a little like fish pond in the back, and you could go out there and point to like a trout, and the waiter would fish it out, and that was your trout that you would eat for dinner. Yeah.
I don't know if they still do that.
I don't.
They for sure still had the pond the last time I was there.
Cool.
And it still exists today. And I think they still give you that matchbook.
It's a classic place. I mean, that's one of those. I'm so glad that it's still around because a lot of those old places kind of went under. So or they just.
I think that's what's been kind of nice about Nordeast is they've kept a lot of that. it'll be interesting as they continue to develop the area, how much of that stays. They're certainly eager to knock down any building they can. So it's always interesting to see that happen. But,
That's unfortunate.
yeah. I try to look at it as just change.
Yeah, just change.
Well,
Just
I
change.
think it is. I mean, I think a lot of cities in America are facing those problems
Mhm.
and those transformations. It's not particular, I think, to one city more than another.
Mm-mm.
People are like, no, it's happening in my city. It's happening in a lot of cities.
It is happening in a lot of cities. Yeah, I'd agree.
So other than enjoying staying at home and not showering for work, have you undertaken any other hobbies during the pandemic?
So I have done probably more gardening than my average year.
What do you grow? What's your prize?
Well, we bought this house 5 years ago, and it came with this amazing flower garden, very much a pollinator garden.
Cool.
I have let it become a wildflower garden, so I'm trying to roll that back a little bit. And so, and I've planted a couple. I'm trying my hand this year at one tomato plant and one pepper plant.
Yeah.
I'm not super gifted, so we'll see if I get anything off of them. So I've done that, and then stand-up paddleboarding last year.
Oh.
I got out a couple times a week. It was kind of I mean, it's what you can do, you know. So
yeah, where's your spot?
We went to Long Lake.
Okay.
And Lake Josephine, I believe.
Okay.
Or Johanna, one of those two.
Long Lake
Those
is
were
by
the
where
two.
we grew up, sort of, right? It's out in yeah.
Well, Keri, one of the surprise topics on KHOP88 lately is some elementary school memories. Can you tell us where you went to elementary?
Yes, I went to Tanglin.
Okay.
It's impossible. It was impossible at the time anyway to get lost there, the nice big circle that it was.
Yeah.
My mom still lives in the neighborhood. She still lives in the house, of course, that I grew up in because she's never going to move.
I understand why after having moved yesterday. My husband's like, I am never moving again.
My mom moved like twice, and she was like, this is it. I'm dying right here. So, so we've driven by, you know, a couple times, but yeah, Tanglin, I think I walked to school with Veronique Richard and Linda, maybe Lisa Powers a little bit, and Denise. Our neighborhood had a bunch of our graduating class in it, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, Tanglin was kind of an interesting little school there.
What were you like as a girl in elementary school?
It's funny to try and think back to it. I was looking at, my mom gave me some old pictures, and so it's always funny to look at them and be like, wow, what were we doing in that outfit? Or we built a fort. We spent a lot of time in the neighborhood. We played a lot of, I distinctly remember playing hide and seek, and we had a lot of backyards without any kind of fencing, the way that I think today it's harder to find this, but open backyards, and the neighborhood was filled with children. So we did a lot of hide and seek at night.
Love that. Yeah, that was
yeah. I think kids today probably miss out on some of that kind of fun stuff.
Yep.
But
yeah, they're playing hide and seek in Minecraft world.
Right. And you're like, what are you playing again?
Yeah.
What's going on in there?
Did you play any sports at Tanglin, Keri?
I might have played softball. I played softball for many years.
Okay.
I played softball through Tanglin, through elementary school. I was a swimmer, I was a swimmer in elementary school and in junior high. And I think I quit all sports when we hit high school.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't a stellar athlete to begin with, so that, you know, it wasn't like it was a big miss, but and then I was thinking, I think you guys have an orchestra one coming up, but I played the French horn.
Oh,
right.
You did?
Yes. I was terrible at it, Marnie. I don't know if you remember this, but you
Well,
probably don't because it's
French-
only distinct for me.
Okay. Keri, isn't the French horn a really difficult instrument?
And it's really beautiful. And if it's played well, it is a really fun instrument. But yeah, I should have started off at some other horn, maybe.
Marnie, were you
Yeah.
in band too? Like, what did you play, Marnie?
Well, since we're going there, I was chosen to play the saxophone starting in 5th grade at Meadowbrook. And
Okay.
I played through 9th grade and used to battle Jeff Clegan for first chair. I was pretty good at it. But I did not play in high school because I had to like obsess about college.
Oh, wow. I didn't play
So-
in high school because I was terrible. I do have one distinct memory of playing the French horn.
Yeah.
And at some point, I went to North. We
Yeah.
went and played with the high school band once. And there was one note, whatever piece of music we were playing, there was one note that the second French hornist played by themselves.
Oh no, and that was you.
And I didn't play it. And then he calls me out and I'm like, who would have ever thought? I don't play over here. I'm just in here looking like I play.
Who else was there another? Because French horn, and there were only like one or two. Who was
There was
the other?
that Elena girl, that woman.
Who?
Wasn't her name Elena?
Yeah, maybe.
there was a
I can't remember.
Baritone.
I was just so
I don't-
terrible at it. Yeah, it was
We'll
not a
have to
pretty
ask
thing for me.
We'll have to ask the orchestra members. I don't think it was a symphony. I don't think they let the horns in, but we'll find out.
I played band, and I know there were people who played French horn, but I don't remember who did at Hopkins.
In
Yeah.
band, but not in the orchestra.
I don't
Okay,
think-
Keri, so that's funny. So was there something about high school that you wanted to share with us? Like, was there something memorable?
Hmm.
That's too
Well-
vague, Jason. Jason's better at these questions.
Yeah. What? Okay. So, yeah. Well, we often talk about teachers, but is there a story that you tell about what happened? Something that happened to you in high school? A story that gets told even now, or a particular personality that sticks out to you, maybe outside your group of friends, but somebody you remember?
I would say the most distinct story that I have is when Deidre and I got kicked out of a large group. I want to say it was algebra class.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. One of those
were
moments.
quite a. So we got to set the stage. Like our math classes were individual, regular, small math classes, but then a couple times a week we got together in that lecture hall. So it was probably like 150, 200 kids, maybe. I don't know if it was that big, but so what did you guys do to pull this off?
We were talking. He told us to be quiet. Probably use shut up. I don't know. But told us to stop talking a couple of times and then pointed at us and told us to get out. And, it was a surprise. I don't think I thought I'd get kicked out.
There
Did
was
you have to go to the principal's office?
No, he just literally just kicked us out. It wasn't go anywhere, just leave this room.
I love that about Hopkins High, because I think that did happen.
Right.
People just get out. Am I in
It
trouble? You're out. We did a thing I remember once in that large group lecture, and I think it was Mike Mitchell and myself and a few other guys. It might have been Charlie Giostra, might have been part of this crowd. It was like the day before spring break. And we were just like, we're going to take this lecture off the tracks. And we did it by just sitting there with our hands over our mouths, but just like silently, quietly sort of mumbling, just creating like a din. And throughout the first like half hour, that din just started growing and growing. Like people could hear it, and then they would start talking to each other. And so, a half an hour into that lecture, everybody in the class was talking to each other. Now, we just took credit for doing that, but it might have been organic because it was the day before spring break. But whoever was teaching was like, "We're done. Nobody's doing any good here." Everybody have a good break.
Everyone out. Get out.
Right. Oh, Marnie, we lost Marnie for a second. Okay, she'll come back. But you don't remember the teacher?
I was trying to think if it was Mr. Smith, I think was my teacher. And I don't think it was the teacher that I had. I think it was that one of the other teachers.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the teacher's name. I have tried to rack my brain. It's kind of funny when you guys first started doing this and you start trying to remember, like, boy, what all did happen in high school?
Right. Well, Katie Keene jumped in to say, hi, Keri, great to see you. So
Yeah.
we're hopeful to get Katie Keene on a future show.
Oh, that would be
she's
great.
booked.
She's booked.
Okay, I have a question. Sorry, we got bumped off. That we don't have our Wi-Fi set up. So, Keri, as I got bumped off, I had a question for you. So, your Silvernagel, Linda Schneewind, and Deidre Schmidt, were you all in the same homeroom? Do you remember?
Yes, Linda and Deidre were in the same homeroom, and I, with a SI instead of SCH, was put into a different homeroom. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At the time, I'm sure I was crushed for that first year when,
Right.
when you first discover that you're not in the same homeroom with your friends. But yeah, those two were in the same homeroom.
I see.
You made it work.
Mhm.
Do you have a particular teacher that you recall from high school? Somebody who maybe had an influence over you?
I was thinking about this because I have, like I said, watched a couple of these, and I was thinking about this as well. And her name is escaping me right now, but we took a typing class.
Oh.
Mrs. Sullivan, maybe? And in retrospect, though we skipped the class a lot, in retrospect, the best class I probably took in many ways was a typing class that, today, fast forward to today, where your whole life is on a computer typing, and having learned that super young, you do it super naturally. Not that math isn't important in reading, don't get me wrong, but those are just baked into school. They force that on you. But the typing class was, and we really liked Mrs. Sullivan. I'm sure it's because we skipped.
Do you ever run across people our age who don't know how to type? Because I do, and I'm always like,
Mhm.
what happened to you?
I just can't believe it. Like, I just think, oh, how do you live? Like, we spend so much time typing now.
Yeah.
Well, I had a terrible experience. I assumed everyone knew how to type, and 10 years ago, I hired someone to work for me, and he comes, and on day one, I'm hearing this tap, 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 and I'm like, what is going on? He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what are you doing with the keyboard? He's like, I'm typing, and it never occurred to me to, like,
I don't
ask
think you are
people
typing.
if they're competent.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, you gotta ask. You cannot assume. It was like really. It only lasted 2 weeks because he couldn't type.
You're like, just in general, I think you need to learn.
Get out of here.
It's got to be difficult to learn it as an adult. I'm with you, Keri. I'm glad we've had Elise Hopes on the show, and her mom was one of the typing teachers. She was my typing teacher, and yeah, that was just invaluable. My dad made me take that class of all.
Yeah.
And at the time, you're like, no, shouldn't have to do this.
Well, it's funny. My dad's rationale for it at the time, and I don't know if any other boys were like this, but my dad was like, if you end up in the service, you know how to type, I'll put you in an office pool somewhere, and you won't have to.
Are you serious?
That's what.
Great way to set it up.
My dad did
Jason.
my dad did Morse code in the Navy. He was like a communications
Wow.
guy, but he did that on a submarine. So I think that was his thing too. That's a
That's
cool
so
job to have on a submarine. But
yeah. No.
weird.
well,
so
there
Keri,
are a bunch of two-fingered typists now talking in our Facebook.
Right, my daughter's like, Keri, I have a question. So this summer is coming up and you referred to emergence and enjoying summer. Is there one particular plan you have, or trip or activity or concert you're looking forward to?
That is a good question. I actually am this weekend going out camping for a girls' camping trip that was canceled last year. So it's all those kind of regular things that you do. I don't think we've picked out any shows yet or any, I don't know that I've seen that they're going to have some of the live outdoor, it's all coming back. I just don't know when exactly, but yeah, I think if you can get back, and if they can get back to having at least the outdoor shows, that will be fun.
Right.
Where are you going camping? And do you have like a whole thing? Like, is this hardcore camping, or is it more like glamping?
Well, I would say this particular trip is very glamping, and we keep it really local so that if it rains or anything, because we're getting kind of old and tired of really true camping.
Yeah.
So it's car camping, and better yet in Prior Lake. So it's like a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
Most of my group of friends live in the city. So, Prior Lake's further than just camping in Minneapolis, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's out on a lake. So it's at Keri Lake, and they have really great campsites there. We're nice and clean, and really we eat well. It's really not, it's not hardcore camping at all.
That sounds like fun though. That's great.
It'll be good.
Is it full summer weather now in Minneapolis?
It has been terribly hot here for the last, I would say 2 weeks. Yeah, at least 2 weeks. Hot and humid. I think we've broken some records, 90 plus degrees through June for the last 2 weeks, with a lot of humidity. Just, I would say one of the reasons why you live here is spring and for me anyway, spring and fall, those great, the great weather you get in those. And this spring has given you a little bit of both, but these last 2 weeks have been tough.
Yeah, maybe hard for your tomato plant. Make sure it's getting enough. I think tomatoes are hard because they have to have the right amount of water, and not too much and not too little. And then is it more at the beginning and less once they flower, right?
So what you'll really appreciate about this is I'm also doing it in like a bucket instead of actually committing to putting it in the ground. And I understand that that's harder.
Yes.
So I'm out there watering it all the time. I hope it likes that. So
it's so tricky. Tomatoes are really tricky. The one thing I'm going to really miss about California, one of the few things, are lemon trees. They grow like weeds, and it's just so fun to everyone can grow lemons. And it's such a fun thing.
I didn't know that. I think I'd enjoy that as well.
Oh yeah, no, life changes with lemons, but
maybe
anyhow, back to you. I'm sorry.
That was great.
Yeah, we just did the container tomato thing too, and we went and we bought the plants at this farmer's market, and this woman running this stand, they had all these varieties, and she was expert on everyone. She knew everyone, and she's mentioned she was a former English teacher. But I thought, man, that's a cool specialty to have. Like, I know everything about tomato plants. Like, let's not get started on cucumbers here. I'm over here on tomatoes.
Yeah, it's just like Keri, Jason and I were talking about this documentary film, My Teacher, the Octopus. Have you heard about it? I
have heard about it. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard about it.
Well, it's the guy just becomes obsessed with one kind of octopus, it's about one octopus. It's not about even, he falls in love with an octopus, but you can really, the insight into that one living thing, like your tomato plant will be different than all the others. So, well, that's exciting. Summer's coming for all of us. Jason, do you have any summer plans?
They're starting to come together. We saw live music this weekend. Two bands in a night. One of my friends is in a band, and they played. All right, let's get weird. You want to talk about hipster stuff? Nordeast
Yeah,
probably has a lot of
that's-
breweries, but does it have a meadery where they make mead?
I don't
Oh,
think
we have
so.
that
I
in
don't
Fort-
think so.
We got one of
have
those
that.
in Madison, a meadery, and they have a music hall, but they haven't let people in yet. So they had music off their loading dock. So my buddy and his side guy played music on the loading dock.
Mhm.
We watched that for a while, and then we rode bikes back to our neighborhood. And then there was like a street shut off, and people were playing on a porch. So
my
I
God.
think
Nice.
a lot of that's going to be happening based on what I'm hearing, and
Mhm.
I'm all for it. Like, let's just do that for a while. That sounds great. Sort of
Mm.
bring your own beer, bring your own lawn chair.
And Jason, Madison is, I mean, both of you now, Marnie, you moved to Portland, but both Madison and Portland, I think, have some really solid live music scenes that will be
Oh,
fun.
yes.
Not up
Yeah.
to Minneapolis level, but pretty
Well,
fun and pretty good.
Pretty close.
Yeah, that's true. You're being nice. I'm so excited to be in Portland. I can barely contain myself. But since we're talking about weird cities, we had rain today, and I haven't seen it rain in like seems like since the pandemic started. So we're gonna have a moist outdoor summer.
Well, that's nice.
Jason, I have to admit, everyone. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, is it hot and humid there?
No, it's just humid. Not everyone can see my Portland hair gets curlier. It's cold and humid. Well, Jason, I have to admit that I'm on my phone and I can't read the lineup of all the amazing guests we have booked, but we are going to have a hot summer on KHOP88.
I got it covered, and want people to know that the orchestra show is next week.
I'm
So we'll be talking orchestra. We'll be talking maybe not so much French horns, but violins and violas. I'm looking forward to that. Katie Keenan, Jenny Thompson the following week.
Mhm.
Nice.
And then the Dance Line show on the 6th of July.
That'll be good.
I'm
Yes.
delivering, Jason.
I can't wait.
Mhm.
And then Brad Herman and Carl Anderson on the 13th of July. So that gets us through
Yes.
about 4 more weeks.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, Keri, it's so nice to talk with you. Is there anything else when you were thinking about the show in high school that you wanted to bring up, or anyone special you wanted to remember?
No, I just think this has been really fun. It's fun to go out and see the shows and to check out when I'm around on Tuesdays and remembering to hop on Facebook. I love seeing what's going on and who you have on. So it's been very fun to see, and a great idea.
Keri.
Way to kill the quarantine year.
Keri, do you know we have a YouTube channel too with all the past shows?
I did just go out there today because I was
Okay.
like, I haven't seen some of them. I better go out and take a quick look and see if they're all out there, and they are. So it's very fun.
Just
I
so
think.
you know.
KHOP
And we have
88.
a map, and we will put you on the KHOP88 map. Once you come on the show, you go on the Google map.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Keri. It was great checking in with you. Have fun camping. Hopefully you can get your
Yes.
stand-up paddleboard back operational this summer. And
I'm
those
sure.
tomatoes will come in.
Mhm.
It was
It'll be
very
great.
fun. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great summer.
Same to you. Marnie, we'll talk to you next week when you'll have furniture.
And Wi-Fi.
It's so great. This is like This Old House, sort of. We see like a reveal every week. It'll be great.
Yes. Okay, enjoy everyone. Be safe.
Take care.
All right.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.